Never in the history of the world have the merchants of obscenity had available to them the modern facilities for disseminating this filth. The onslaught of the communist masters of deceit.
Pinko, Commie, Slutz. Pinko, Commie, Slutz. Pinko, Commie, Slutz. Pinko, Commie, Slutz.
Ho, 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 ho.
Hello. Hello, Steve. Hello, Marlo.
Yeah.
Ghost Commie home.
Excellent. We're all here on this chill December Eve.
My wish came true.
Which was it?
Snow.
Oh, nice. It did. It did snow.
I still have not gotten snow.
No snow down there?
No, absolutely not. It's called the Cape May Bubble.
What?
It is a zone of America that never snows. It's basically like Ebenezer and the Scrooge teamed together to create an area. And that area is where I grew up and was a child. We don't get snow.
For real? That's wild to me that I have never come across this knowledge before.
Yeah, no, it never. It's just you're not allowed to have Christmas joy. It's terrible.
Oh.
I am under the oppression of the Grinch right now.
Well, you know what? I personally...
20 miles north of me has 6 inches of snow. I have 0 snow.
Wow. So, like, no snow days growing up.
We had occasional hurricane days.
Weather. Oh, okay.
We had flood days, but more than flood days, we had days that they did not give us off from school, that I had to drive my car into school, and the school was underwater.
Underwater.
Yeah, but they didn't give us off. But we did occasionally have flood days. But for the most part, it was just like you'd just be driving to school and you'd be like, oh, well, that road doesn't work or like isn't there. And then like you'd eventually get to a road where you're like, okay, I guess I'm going to do it. And then like the power steering would like short out. It would just be like, oh, I shouldn't be driving my car here. But no, we almost never had snow days growing up. I never experienced the joy of snow. Well, I mean, I did occasionally. For the most part, we didn't. It was a thing you heard about. Never got to experience.
It was in the winds. I guess this is our Christmas episode, right? Is this coming out on Christmas? Is that when we're gonna...
Yeah, I guess so. Oh.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean...
Well, I like to do a full 12 days situation. I like how saturated the end of the year is with holidays around the winter solstice. Super into that.
The fact of the matter is the sun has been being defeated by darkness progressively every day of the year.
Oh, God. And it's going to be the longest, darkest night. Just
after December 21st, we can only hope that the pattern continues and eventually there is no daylight. That's our goal.
And then the sun's going to come. The Chad sun's going to come out here.
As a Norwegian, I approve.
Fuck the goddamn sun. I hope that the god of darkness defeats it. May a pep finally swallow Ra whole.
Wow, am I the only pro-sun member of this podcast?
I'm a pro-winter sun.
Black hole sun.
I'm a pro-black hole sun also.
Yeah, definitely.
Won't you come to wash away the rain?
And then, like, make everybody's eyes real big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens.
And there's just pandemonium, and, like, 12-year-olds are just tripping the fuck out. They're like, what is going on MTV? Oh, my God, it's 1994.
Won't you come? Won't you come?
Yeah. Well, I personally,
Anyway.
I'm going to go on record as saying I love the sun. I welcome your return this winter solstice.
Every winter solstice, I am honestly throwing my support in for the forces of darkness.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
100% am hoping that the God of the Night continues, that the next, on December 22nd, the night is slightly longer and it continues until there's no more day. That's what I hoped for every year. Every year I'm disappointed, but I have a good feeling about this year.
As a ginger, I'm also preordained to being anti-sun.
It's my dark Mediterranean features that are
allow you
influencing my feelings about the sun here. I didn't consider that.
You didn't consider that.
Yeah.
Well,
Honestly,
I didn't consider
this is
eugenic.
a big goy privilege moment of Bunny's, and she should come to terms with that.
Look, I can't help it. I'm all emotional outbursts.
Yeah, that's what Obama says.
Yes, I'm referencing. Was it a Post article or I don't know?
It was from his book.
It was like, no,
Yeah,
it's
but
from
the
his
Post
book. But
was
the article
writing
was pointing out, like, oh, he used these tropes, and the lefty media didn't even
Okay, they are
notice.
actually,
And the pull
they
quote
are not
is, like,
anti-Semitic tropes. They're anti-Hellenistic tropes.
Yeah, and
which
that's
is
what's the
fine.
funny part. The
Which
funny
is
part.
correct and fine, because
Yeah.
we've all met the fiery Greek. We know what the fiery Greek is. And yeah, they need to be called out in our media.
Don't they ever?
Don't
they ever?
Any president who puts a stop to this menace.
Sarkozy. Sarkozy. No,
It was
Sarkozy.
Sarkozy. It was a Sarkozy reference.
Yes,
And apparently Sarkozy is basically a Sephardic Jew.
Yes, but Obama said a quarter Greek Jew. That part is a quote from the book, correct?
Yeah.
And
he has fiery Mediterranean blood, doesn't listen to reason because he's so passionate and fiery and Mediterranean and doesn't use a fucking normal alphabet like a human.
True. Unlike Obama, who's like, let's just...
I think there is
drone him there. Drone him there. Oh, did I kill too many people? Oops.
Yeah, anyway.
That's my Obama. You're congrats. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Is a weird island dwelling fuck. His like, oh my god, Helen of Troy is hot. I should start a war or something. I don't know what the Greeks do. No one does.
Well, the Iliad does indeed start with a scene of Achilles crying to his mother, the goddess Thetis, on a beach. The opening is, sing, muse of the rage of Achilles. He's really upset right now. Mm-hmm. Agamemnon stole his spoils, you see. And that's what he's mad about. And then, what he gets mad about later is that his beloved Patroclus goes out. He's refusing to fight in the war, Then his beloved, his cousin, his roommate, Patroclus, uses Achilles' armor, goes out, gets killed. And then Achilles goes apeshit, kills Hector, forgoes the way you're supposed to do war things, drags the body around a bunch of times. And then the Iliad just ends with him being like, hey, we're going to chill out and do funeral games.
Yeah.
I think it's founded. Congrats to anybody who didn't know. That is indeed the story of Achilles.
I'll once again quote, the Greeks eat the lamb because it's the only animal the Greeks can outsmart.
Also, the only meat you roast longer, it gets more tender. It's magic.
Actually, most meats, if you roast longer, they get...
Yeah, I know. I will say, though...
literally, the theory of pulled pork. Mm-hmm. And brisket. And also brisket. Both the Ashkenazi and Texan barbecue versions of brisket. I
like both of those briskets.
Yeah, and they both operate...
Perfectly frank.
on a basis that if you roast them longer, they become more tender.
I will say, though, I'm really into all the weird Northern European winter traditions. I think this is where Northern European culture shines.
Hell yeah, my people.
You know what I mean? I think they're the snow people. It's well known I make a problematic claim to the Sami people in Scandinavia.
I call them Sami, but
just don't call them Laplanders.
them,
they got the reindeer.
I call them Eskimos.
Okay. But I do enjoy Krampus. Got really popular. That's kind of an Eastern European, Germanic sort of thing. Krampus got really popular. I would really like the Welsh.
Oh, their dumb skeleton horse. Fuck that.
Yeah, Mari Lud. Okay, no. Put it this way. It's a skeleton horse that comes to your house that you have to sing back and forth with or it won't go away.
We all have a skeleton horse that has haunted us for the past 20 years because we didn't sing good enough. And, I think we should get to a point where we stop bragging about it.
I'm really into that. Like I said before, I'm into spooky Christmas traditions. Of course, the best Christmas story is objectively A Christmas Carol.
Really?
It's a Christmas ghost story. Die Hard. There's no ghost in Die Hard.
I'm a different, not conventional type, and I uniquely to the stream of history believe that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Have I blown your mind yet?
Mm-hmm. Anyway, yes, I'm into spooky winter traditions, different ways that different cultures want to look. You're in the minority here, Marlo. Most people are like, let's light a bunch of shit on fire. Let's bring on some light. I like anything where people light stuff on fire.
Yeah, no, and I think that really should be the only source of light that humans.
I'm into Yule, right? I'm into Yule stuff.
And the cool thing about winter festivals is lighting a fire in the darkness, which presupposes darkness. And I like winter festivals so much, I don't think there should be not darkness.
I got you.
Also, I just have to point out, my breath smells like anise right now. And
Were you drinking ouzo?
We have our Greek night, we do. So my mom did also I helped. But yeah, we did a vegetarian moussaka, which is
okay, nice.
Essentially moussaka with impossible ground beef. But otherwise, it's moussaka. I did the bechamel. It was a good bechamel. We did some homemade hummus. I did an Arab salad, which...
Wait, what does that consist of?
Okay, it's known by the Israelis as an Israeli salad. It's known by the Arabs as an Arab salad. Based on my experience with that fucking area of the world, I assume the Greeks just call it a Greek salad, but not that kind of Greek salad.
Okay.
No, it's just it's cucumbers, red onion, tomato, olive oil, lemon juice, salt, pepper.
Oh, so yeah, there's no lettuce.
Yeah, there's no lettuce. No, it's a collection of vegetables you put on your pita with the rest of it. It's delicious. The Greeks also claim that as a thing.
Well, in the Americas, you find it as a Greek village salad a lot of places, or horiotica salad.
So, yeah,
because anything with feta cheese on it is a fucking Greek salad.
That's the only defining feature of a Greek salad.
Yeah, I lived in an Israeli neighborhood for like a year, and it was called an Israeli salad. I've talked to Arabs who insist they invented the idea of putting some vegetables together. Yeah, like... The entire fucking region is based on like claiming some very basic food stuff as a thing you came up with. So yeah, I did an Arab salad. I call it an Arab salad because I do not support Zionism. Oh, we've been doing homemade yogurt in the Instant Pot I got my mom last year.
Nice.
So we did some tzatziki off of that, and also we drained some of it into some like Lebna-like substance. Yeah, no, we do a whole fucking spread. The main course is, of course, the moussaka, though, which is like mad good.
I'm pleased to hear this.
So, yeah, I love your people as a thing I can voyeuristically, like, appropriate certain foodstuffs from. I feel like the person I associate with most in history is the curator from the British Museum from 1870. Like 100%. I understand why you would want to steal from their culture, but not actually be a part of their culture, because it sounds like a fucking nightmare. But I would absolutely steal from you guys, like, all day. Fucking rules.
Oh, yeah. It's very appropriable.
Yeah, no, I could invent a whole thing called the White Western Man and just steal it from you guys. Fucking nuts.
That's right.
Anyway, Silver Bells,
right.
Silver Bells, it's Christmas time in the city. Also, I have not watched the second half of that, so
You're such a... oh, no, then you didn't get to
I'm not
possibly
such a
a
dick,
crucial part.
Okay, no, I watched the first half very intensely. This whole movie requires a social element that I don't have access to because, as has been alluded to, I live with my goddamn parents. But yeah, 100%, I get the value of this movie. It's fun as shit. I love the movie. I can talk very intensely about the first half of this movie.
Okay, so I guess we're getting into it, right?
Wait, why didn't you see the second half of it?
I wrote
Because I
notes.
was watching the first half of it, and I got to the like first half mark, and I was like, I need to take a break because this is too much. And then I just didn't get to the second half.
Man, I took notes. I got lots of notes.
Me too. I'm looking for my
meant
first page.
Most of those notes to you guys as I was taking them.
So, of course, everyone.
It was a quality, like, terrible movie.
So I say terrible. This was a Lifetime movie. A American Christmas tradition. I suggested we all watch what I believe to be a classic, the 2013 movie Christmas in the City. The city, everyone, never identified.
It's just the city, and, like, we're all good with that. It's the city in capital letters.
Clearly LA.
There ain't no love in the heart of it. It could be New York. No, I mean...
No, it's not New York because there's a couple things that they do where they mention Broadway like it's another place.
Mm-hmm. It's LA. I looked it up. Or at least it was filmed in LA.
Yeah, it was filmed in LA.
It's obviously filmed in LA, but also in their use of signs and signifiers, I still maintain it could be New York and Broadway.
No, it is obviously intentionally supposed to be a city, the big city that you could project any place onto. That they purposely didn't identify it, but I do think that they indicated it wasn't New York.
No, because you're also bringing into it a pre-established prejudice that Broadway happens to be a street in New York and not itself a signifier.
No, motherfucker, not Broadway the street. Broadway where people do Broadway shows.
Right, exactly, and that's my point.
Canonically in New York. That's not something that is gonna... What, in this universe, it just exists and it's own...
No, Broadway is just an idea that if you do musicals hard enough...
Okay, look, all right, Marlo, you half-watching son of a bitch.
Yeah,
no, I'm just... No,
all right, everyone. I just want to look. I am trying to give some thought to the fact that somebody might listen to this and still not have a great idea what we're talking about. So,
right.
Like I said, 2013 Lifetime movie, Christmas in the City. They never identify the city. I'm going to give you the lead that showed up on my streaming service. A grouchy, money-hungry store manager who tries to ruin Christmas is foiled by a single mom and her daughter. The grouchy, money-hungry store manager is played by Ashanti, which is the entire reason why I originally, in like 2016, watched this movie. I said Ashanti. All right, I'll watch it.
I knew that. I knew that was the reason you watched it.
Yeah.
No
Okay,
idea.
so let me just, before we like dive into it, not only do I think is it a quintessential Christmas Lifetime movie, it's also got some of the best tropes in general from really lowbrow rom-coms. But they're done so like, I don't know.
They're not subtle.
It's like a community theater troupe
Yes.
is
Yeah.
doing it. I love it. I love it. These are not all people who have no career, who aren't on other things. That's also the funny part too.
I didn't recognize anyone
Hello?
other than Ashanti.
Oh, do you watch Shameless? The best friend character, Angie.
Oh,
She's a main character on Shameless.
Okay.
The main character, Wendy Carroll.
What a Christmas name.
I know she was on like How I Met Your Mother. Like she's one of the significant Ted girlfriends from that really terrible show.
About Christmas trees and real Christmas trees versus fake.
Oh
Christmas
my
trees.
God. This is a
Give some
rewatch
plot.
for sure
Give some
for me.
plot.
The first trope you get is you find out Wendy, the main character, she's a small town girl. Everyone loves her. She's got a sort of beginning of Beauty and the Beast-esque walk through her small town's like main street, essentially.
Okay, yeah.
And they're all like, hello, Wendy. Oh, we're getting the things out for Christmas. But there's another trope that gets introduced immediately. It's her daughter, right? She's a single mom, as established. The daughter is the precocious child looking to pimp out their single parent, which is something that does not exist in reality and specifically shows up in romantic comedies of a certain caliber to like kind of gloss over any messiness you could potentially imagine would occur there, right? So like within the first 2 minutes, this kid is like, gee, mom, like, wouldn't it be great if you had a boyfriend? Like, like immediately, like, or no, she says to the bus driver who's driving her to school,
Isn't my mom pretty?
Yeah, my mom got a haircut. And it's like, and on this rewatch, I was like, I watched with the idea that this kid's a creep.
Well, it's also very
Her name
much
is
the-
Grace.
Her name is Grace. The mother's name is Wendy. Grace and Wendy Carroll. So Wendy Carroll is a small town, blah, blah, blah. After dropping her daughter off, she goes to Carol's Candy.
hold
You're
on.
like, oh, her family's got a candy shop.
It's also very much what a creepy Florida mom will like try and coach her daughter into doing is, hey, you should tell the bus driver how pretty I look with my new haircut.
Fair enough. But the way this movie plays it, it's like this kid's independently a creep.
Right. So
Like-
wish fulfillment for creepy Florida moms.
Well, and canonically, the character of Wendy is ultra chaste, ultra fucking conservative. Like, gee whiz, gee willikers. Like,
Okay, I
very,
have things to say on that, but yeah, go ahead.
very sexless, this woman.
A very interesting woman, but I have some things to say.
So they establish within the first 5 minutes, there's this business. The business is going into foreclosure.
We know
Wendy's
it's
gotta-
going into foreclosure because she got a big letter that has giant red impact font that says, you don't have enough money and we're going to take your dad's candy shop away. Signed, Bank Bankman of the bank.
You know, I don't know. I think it was like Seth Bankman.
It was Moisha Juman of of the Big Bang family.
For sure. Okay, another aspect for me on this rewatch is, of course, it came out in 2013. I watched it initially in like 2016. Watching it again now, I'm like, oh, there's all these little things that are like kind of weird and problematic, or I feel like would stand out in a different way now. But anyway, so we establish the ex, though, Gracie's father. He's out of the picture. He's never met Gracie.
Okay, can we
You don't have to worry
discuss
about it.
actually that scene when she first walks in the candy shop for the first time, and she walks into her mom on the phone with someone going, well, he never wanted to see his daughter anyway, and he's a piece of shit.
What Exposition,
right.
baby.
Yeah, no, like she just walks in on, and I didn't realize at the time it was like, oh, it's talking about her baby daddy. Like I thought this is just how this small town is. That like if you walk in and
they're getting the goss on.
If you walk in on an old woman on the phone, she's going to be talking about a guy who knocked a lady up and didn't want to see his daughter anyway, and that piece of shit.
So the mom is gossiping. Says something to the effect of like, you need to live your life, Wendy. Also, it establishes that the original owner of the family candy store, the father, he's passed away. He's dead. This is his legacy, etc. And then the kid comes back and she's like, take me ice skating. And that's another thing. They always go ice skating, no matter what. No matter there not being a touch of snow on the ground the entire movie. There's a place to ice skate outside.
Real trees versus it's great. Yeah, I just would say again, like, if you don't have a social scene to watch this movie in and you're friendless and living with your parents,
okay,
it's
Marlo.
cringe.
Also, your
but
threshold for
I understand
cringe is
why.
Also, you only watched one half of the movie.
But Christmas is cringe. Christmas is cringe.
No, also, again, you're really jumping down my throat when I again say I understand why this movie rules, and I would love to like get drunk with friends and watch this movie. I just don't have any friends. That's a me problem. It's not a you problem. I'm not saying this movie sucks. No, this movie's fucking awesome.
Well, look, I'm giving a little bit of a play-by-play
it's hard to watch alone.
So, if you remember the parts, just jump in.
Yeah, anyway, so she needs money, and her big plan for
her
getting
mom
money
wants her to go to the city
like
purposely, very explicitly not identified. Cut to phone call.
It is again called the city, capital T, capital C.
The big city.
It's just the city. They all live under the shadow of the city. It is the city. It is the universal city. It is the first city. It is where.
All right, she moved from the suburbs to the city. Yes.
Well, and the way she does this, she does this is she calls her best friend Angie. That's introduced via a phone call, and Angie's like, "Hey, the store I work at is hiring for the holidays. Mind you, it is 3 weeks till Christmas in this plot, and the city's far enough that she has to take a bus to get there. So they pack up." They take a bus. They meet Angie in this city. Angie is on Shameless, the actress. So the main character, Wendy, is a white woman. Angie, her best friend, is black. Now, immediately, it's very like magical black girlfriend. Like, oh, like come stay with me in the city. You guys take my bed. I've been dying to try out the pull-out
Yeah,
couch.
what the fuck?
It's weird, right? Like it's overkill.
And does that?
Like,
I mean,
okay, you're moving.
Also, when they get off the bus in the city, they immediately see a homeless person.
Oh, yeah.
Immediately, and they're like, oh, my.
Okay, yeah, actually, can we discuss homeless Santa? Because that was, like, crazy to me.
Oh, yes. The second homeless person they see in that montage is someone that she's originally mistaken
for a normal
to be a Santa.
No, well, he's dressed in a Santa suit. Okay, spoilers aside, and I haven't actually seen this reveal, but I assume this happened. Santa exists in this universe. So she sees a person in a Santa suit, which in our universe is by definition a Santa Claus, because Santa isn't a real thing. A Santa is whatever is in a Santa suit. That's what defines a Santa. So she sees...
Which you would know being the most Santa American among us.
Yeah, I am a bit Jewish, as they say. But anyway, so she...
I'm talking about your glorious beard abilities.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I said too. But anyway, so they see a Santa, and she's like, oh, hi, Santa. And he turns around to reveal himself to be a homeless man, to which she recoils in disgust.
Which is completely accepted. It's completely
accepted. At the same time, her daughter innocently continues on. no, this is Santa. Mommy, why are you disgusted with this Santa who's a Santa? And she's like, no, get away from him. He's poor. He's poor. For the love of God, he's poor.
Well, and then they get to Angie's sad apartment.
It's a very nice
and they have this whole
apartment,
conversation.
and they mention that it's nice.
Yeah,
it's
it's a nice apartment, but they act like it's sad because it's a walk-up and it only has one bedroom. And she doesn't have the time or space for a real Christmas tree.
So the daughter asks, why don't you have a Christmas tree? To which Angie says, oh, for the environment, which isn't a real thing.
It's real dumb.
Well, I think that establishes like a general politics or a general like liberalness of living in the city. Like moving from the suburbs, and it's also like, what's her name? Wendy lives in like a fucking mansion. That we didn't establish that yet, because
this small town she comes from is like gorgeous, beautiful, like very quaint, like out of one of those Thomas Kincaid paintings. Yeah, so that I'm gonna get into like more of the class stuff as we go along, but definitely establishes this valuing of quote unquote traditional Christmas things. And
the city doesn't have that.
And the city doesn't have it.
I
but
call
they
this
do
the Heideggerian themes.
I understand this Heideggerian theme that you're talking about, kind of this loss of like modernity. Modernity has lost the natural world. Yeah,
no, it's okay, because she says for the environment or whatever, and you think, if you're a normal human watching this movie, you think, oh, yeah, that's what I would also tell a child if she came to my one bedroom in New York and asked me why I don't have a Christmas tree. Because, to protect the environment or whatever sounds better than, like, having a Christmas tree is a giant pain in the ass.
Well, no, but okay, so I guess we can get into it right now, because the absurd thing is she does fucking have a Christmas tree. It's right behind her in the scene. It's just a fake Christmas tree. It's not a real pine tree they went and cut down or whatever, which this essentially is a class thing already, because
the reason she doesn't have a Christmas tree,
it's like whether your family thought Chinese food was expensive or not. If you had a real tree every year, you were kind of a little bit fancy.
The reason she doesn't have a Christmas tree is because she lives alone in a single bedroom apartment, and why the fuck would you bother? Like, that's why she doesn't have a Christmas tree. But a 5-year-old asks her why she doesn't have a Christmas tree, and she says, oh, to protect the environment, which is fine to a 5-year-old. It's not a real thing. And if you're a normal person watching this movie, you think, oh, that's just the answer she gives to a 5-year-old. That's not real. But it's established throughout the movie that's actually the reason.
Yeah,
8 more times.
It comes up over and over again.
It comes up over and over again. I saw. Then, it comes up.
Yeah, then they go to
the environment.
Finally, they get to the.
Yeah, no, you know, if you have a Christmas tree, that comes from an old growth pine forest, and like that tree is 200 years old. Like having a Christmas tree destroys the environment.
I want to give an anecdote here. I tried to get a Christmas tree like 3 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
I tried. I was at work. I was driving around. I was like, let me stop by this corner in downtown Brooklyn. Let me try to buy a Christmas tree. I'm like, hey, how much is this Christmas tree? And they're like, $80 and $20 for the stand.
Yeah. I never had a real tree the entire time I was a child. We had, for most of what I can remember, one fake tree that we pulled out of the attic.
I had that as well. And the reason I was given was because one of my parents was allergic.
My family would say things about like the pets and whatever. And it is a mess to get the pine needles everywhere. First of all, to get a real tree, it's expensive. But to bring it in and decorate it the way people who really value that do is a somewhat bougie thing. It can definitely be something that working class people partake in, but it's definitely like one of those things that neighbors could differ on. Like you're coming from the same place, but one person is is obviously I'm coming from a
but the finish of my story, I go across the street. There's somebody else who looks like an independent seller of Christmas trees. And I'm like, okay, that other one was attached to a store. They've got the expensive trees. Let me go across the street to this independent vendor who's unattached to the big businesses that are demanding the profit margins. And let me ask if I could get this, side hustle tree. I asked the side hustle tree person, I was like, how much is a tree? They're like $120. What the fuck? This is across the street. This is the worst marketplace of Christmas trees that I've ever been on.
But fundamentally, a real tree requires it to have been grown for a while and cut down. And you know what I mean? Like, it's quite a bit that goes into a real Christmas tree, finding its way eventually to the sidewalk.
The labor and the farming, it's very much, I remember that there was like a whole NPR thing that I once stumbled on about like the economics or the struggling, like the sapling, you have to plant the seeds of the Christmas tree a certain amount, and global warming is making it more difficult for them to grow and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, fun fact, Taylor Swift, earlier in her career, kind of played with the notion that she had grown up on a farm. In reality, her financier father had purchased a Christmas tree farm in Pennsylvania. So Taylor Swift,
phony as the tree that the woman in the movie had.
I haven't listened to her album, so I have no opinions. I just always think that's a funny thing. Is like for a minute she was like, yeah, because she was doing country in the beginning, and she was kind of like just a simple girl, grew up on a farm, and then you look into it, and it's like. It's this Christmas tree farm that her father bought from one of his clients. It's not even something she necessarily would have been at. Anyway, so we get to the main event, the department store. I like the name of the department store, Woolman's. It gives almost a Woolworths nostalgia. Yeah, I feel like
big business, tycoons.
Yeah. So, but what I love about yes, the Woolmans are wholesome. That gets established. The store has been around for 50 years. They seemingly only have one location, this location in the big city, but have a
general
unseen
Macy's analog.
Yes, but it's definitely this one location. It's not as if they are managing whatever. So it's one main location.
When we get to the introduction of Tom, I have a few things because I have a whole fucking theory.
So they see this beautiful traditional Christmas window display where they're like, oh, it looks like the inside of a snow
No, it doesn't. It looks like cheap animatronics. That's the thing.
Yeah, there's all these little gnome creatures.
It's not a very good window display.
Our main characters are dazzled by
it. They look like someone on acid who saw a thing.
The amount of glassy-eyed stares at a Christmas thing in this movie. They've never seen that little spray paint snow stuff.
Yeah, which comes up, which is part of my thing with the introduction of Tom. But
before we get to Tom, our villain arrives.
They've never seen animatronics. They're literally a peasant from the Middle Ages that you show a literal wind-up clock to, and they're like, it moves without any input. Oh my God, this is the grace of God.
Well, it's establishing the magicalness of
They literally
and it's hitting a couple notes. They like keep saying the same things again. Real Christmas trees, store displays that look like snow globes, like these little phrases like come up over and over again. So our villain arrives, beautiful, gorgeous Ashanti. What I noticed watching this time is that Ashanti's character is Tiana. She is a marketing whiz that the board of this company that seemingly has one location has sent Tiana to get sales up, right? And we know she's bad because they play a rather sinister version of the
every
Dance of the Sugar
time
Plum
she
Fairy.
walks into a room.
Which I do like as a trope of Christmas nefariousness. And then we have our meet cute, which is when we meet Tom, which this is a rom-com Lifetime in general trope where our main character has a meet cute with a man that she doesn't know is her boss. This is what happens. They make eye contact. And this part is where the true fantasy of this movie begins. Once it's established that this is indeed Tom Woolman, and he is the de facto person who's like running it. His uncle's the owner of Woolman's, etc. But somehow he's powerless against the board. I don't know.
Oh, I have a lot to say about that.
But the first true fantasy gets introduced, which is Woolman's is this family first business that not only gives Christmas bonuses even to their temporary seasonal employees, but also provides daycare immediately.
Yeah, no, they love their company daycare.
Yes. So immediately it's revealed, oh, he's Woolman. And he's like, oh, great. You want to work here? Can you start today? And she's like, yes, I can start today. And yes, I need daycare. And I'm like, this is the most fantastical portion of the entire premise, is that this company traditionally is doing these things. So right away it introduces what I think is kind of a classic Christmas trope, which is some entity representing kind of a good capitalism. In the character of Tiana, we have the bad capitalism. Immediately, she wants to put the most expensive toys on the children's eye level, which is in opposition to this whole like, oh, Woolman's really takes care of its employees.
So I have just a thing on this, though. When she first meets Tom Woolman, he comes up to her and they're like talking and he's like, oh, what do you think of the store? And this is a very common thing that I see from her a lot. She goes off like a person on cocaine about how, oh my God, the Christmas display looks like a fucking snow globe and ba 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 ba. And where do you get this snow from? And he responds with, I don't know where the snow comes from. I think a truck or something. Like, he doesn't actually seem to give a shit about any of it. And I think that's a factor of the actors.
Oh yeah, the acting is very flat. A lot of interesting line readings here.
Because this becomes a thing with Tom, and it leads into my favorite scene, which comes later, but where he doesn't actually seem to give a shit. He doesn't actually seem to care about Christmas. It seems like his main thing is, one, he does care a bit about the employees, which is why he likes the Christmas bonuses and why he likes the employee daycare.
He likes his family's legacy, it seems, a little bit here. So he keeps relating it because all of those points he relates back to being like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And maybe you didn't clock this, but he does kind of bring up more than once that, oh, when I was young, Woolman's just seemed so magical. And I was always hanging out with my uncle here. But no, you're right. There is sort of like, does he really care about Christmas? That is kind of part of his. That is part of like what we're supposed to be.
When he's arguing with Ashanti, he seems to not be making arguments about the goodness of Christmas. He seems to be making very reasonable arguments that Ashanti is not actually good at marketing.
I pulled
because that's
which this is the funniest aspect is she. Excellent at marketing. She accomplishes what she's supposed to do, but they have this argument at the beginning where she's like, I'm going to put the most expensive toys at the children's eye level. And he responds, no, we put the most popular toys on the children's eye level, which are both capitalist arguments. The good capitalism is supposed to be populist.
Well,
when he's arguing with Ashanti, though, it's like, his arguments are, well, it's literally Christmas and maybe we should have some candy canes in the store. She's built up.
Well, and then she's trying to introduce her new idea, which is the boogie Santa, the sexy Santas. And I got to say, immediately, the people seem to love it. Everybody but Tom and our main characters seem to fucking be okay with the techno music and the sexy Santas.
Where it's like,
at least at first.
Oh, what about the spirit of Christmas? And Ashanti's like, well, shopping's the spirit of Christmas. And like that played as like a bad thing.
Yes.
And it's like, well, you run a fucking department store.
Exactly, but that's what's
literally
so funny
shopping is
that they're riding this line. Yeah, yeah,
dynamic
exactly.
cooperating. You absolutely have a department store.
Well, and then we do get the introduction of Nick, the Santa working in the department store. Twinkle, winkle, wink.
I was like, this dude's 100% actually.
Yeah, he busts in and he's like, this music, this techno music, right? This music's not like any carol I've ever heard. And then he goes on a diatribe, your classic weird secular Christmas diatribe that the reason for the season is giving and not getting. And I don't see what that has to do with Sexy Santa. Like, why can't we have techno and Sexy Santa? Why does that beget focusing more on getting, right? So I have a lot of fundamental arguments with these things. Also, did you notice what Tiana's last name is? It's Musk.
Okay,
Musk.
I'm not convinced Tom actually cares about Christmas. I feel like most of his arguments are essentially... we're a department store, and I legitimately just disagree with you about the marketing value. You know, like, yes, we should be family friendly because we're a department store during Christmas. That's the point.
Yeah, it's really funny. They're all making these weird, almost moralist
yeah, he's not
arguments.
making a moralist argument. He's making an argument of, no, in order to make more money during Christmas, as a department store, we ought to do dumb Christmas tropes and appeal to families who want to do Christmas shopping because it's Christmas and we're a department store.
But that's the whole thing, is that Tiana is trying to encourage more shopping and with her methods, whatever they are. They just are not traditional, sentimental, Christmassy things. They're slick, they're sleek.
Okay, I have a way of framing.
But I also think it's weird, the tone of when Tom complains about Tiana is a little weird. She doesn't belong here.
Ebenezer Scrooge, but like Ebenezer Scrooge made sense because he owns a bank and you don't actually need to like Christmas to own a bank. But if you run a department store, you do literally need to like Christmas. Like, that's part of the way you make money. Mm-hmm. And it's a big way you make money.
Well, she's just about making money, right?
Listen.
So she wants to... go Steve. Let's Steve.
I thought she represented austerity and neoliberal kind of cuts to these kind of New Deal era traditional 50s post-war era relics that are representational in our like unconscious.
Oh, I wouldn't even say that. I say she's like the 1980s.
Right.
She's like, which is austerity,
in a power suit,
which is the era of austerity, and she also replaces this traditional mode of economy, which is we need the most popular thing to be sold so that people buy the most of one thing with the sexiest, most expensive thing. And you know, I'm throwing this out there, but I couldn't help but thinking of the libidinal economy, where this kind of equation of bringing somebody's projected libido into the marketing of products. And they called it, and I looked it up, it's the micropolitics of desire, advocates revolutionary change in practices of everyday life as a way of providing the preconditions for a new society. And I think that kind of summarizes her marketing, which is a direct affront to this kind of Heideggerian, what we perceive as the natural capitalism, the product of the 1950s, singing carols, going through the rituals, having Santa Claus. The spirit of Christmas that is passed from one generation to another is directly in conflict with this new austerity, cutting of measures, anti-human, pro-artificial.
That's the conflict they're setting up. And pro-artificial. Everything she represents is sort of seen as suspicious or bad marketing.
And what better is a better representation of the libidinal economy than just pasting pictures of naked people in every corner of the store?
Yeah. She wants to cut the bonuses. She wants to cut the daycare right out the bat. She's like, of course is what we do.
It has nothing to do with marketing or sales.
Exactly.
You're brought into
I don't know much about how a board operates.
Talk about employee benefits.
I do want to pause here and say there are a number of clues we get about our main character, Wendy, being a good girl in this rom-com Christmas universe. It is implied that she has remained somewhat abstinent for the 5 years that the baby's father has been absent. Of course, she's from a small town. She likes traditional Christmas things. Obviously likes Tom, but he's her boss. So she's got these standards. That's how we know she is good. The way we know Tiana is bad is all of the aforementioned things, but also how she treats her assistant bodyguard.
Who's the best character in this entire movie?
Yeah. Which initially you're like, the R word?
We need to establish this is a hot mess.
Also, I want to say every one of Ashanti's outfit as Tiana in this movie, 100% would wear. They're great. Wendy, the main character, there's so much mustiness around all these tropes. But it's also this example of what is ultimately most Christmas content is, this pro-capitalist propaganda in America. But they like to do this thing where they pretend it's actually critical of consumerism.
Right. Yeah,
it's against selfishness.
Yeah, this is the most Heideggerian movie I've ever seen since the time I watched Triumph.
And then we have this, I guess, intended to be romantic scene where Wendy comes upon Tom playing the piano after hours.
Right.
Oh my God.
In the store.
This
is the first super cringe.
No, this is the second super cringe. The first super cringe.
No. Everything's got a layer of cringe, but this is my first super cringe because it's got the.
No, but we're forgetting the part where I forget her name now. Best friend Black Woman, Angie Black Woman, also sang earlier.
That's true. Oh yeah, she sang Toyland. Every song is a bizarre fucking choice.
Right?
It's bizarre by Christmas movie standards. It's super weird. So yes, you're right. The first one we get, but I say it's a little less cringy because the character of Angie's supposed to be an actor, a musical theater actress. So it's there's something she's performing for the kids, blah, blah, blah. It's not like two people in their normal lives are spontaneously singing Christmas carols, which is what we get in this piano scene. And she says she has this memory about all singing the first Noel, which is another strange choice, I think, as a Christmas carol goes. Then they just sing it full out, like
3 verses. They did 3 verses.
Oh my God, it's so long. It's so long. It's just got such big dork energy, It's very church camp vibes. But what I thought was funny is that she brings up the first Noel and she's like, oh, and we would sing it and blah, blah, blah. And he'd be like, the first Noel, this? And he starts playing it on the piano and she's like, oh, you know it? Shut the fuck up. He was already playing classic Christmas carols when you walked in on him. You know it? Oh my. But yes, they sing 3 verses. And the first Noel is also one of these Christmas carols that is...
you call it the first Noel and not just the Noel song, you're a member of Westboro Baptist Church. I had no knowledge that was actually called the first Noel. That is bizarre to me that any human would.
Anyone in a choir would have been.
It's about the first Noel. So then more Ashanti changes happen. More Christmas trees become pink Christmas trees. And Yes, pink Christmas trees are definitely
That
not
is
it.
100%
Is said at one point. It is. So then you have this like scene where they have this song and they kind of almost kiss, but then they don't. They're interrupted by Ashanti. The uncles also, they were like, Ashanti and the uncle were just watching them like creeps. So yeah, they get interrupted, etc. And then, so then we see kind of a montage of more changes. Yeah, so then we get like a bunch more changes. Tiana couldn't get daycare scrapped entirely, so she got it cut down. There's a scene where Bruno comes in and fires one of the daycare ladies and she leaves in tears. But then they start using the daycare as an indoctrination, like a re-education place. They play this music video for the kids.
Postmodernism
awesome.
is hypnotizing your children.
You can't trust Santa to make you cool. You got to buy what you need to be cool at school. Buy the latest toys.
It's actually a better critique of postmodernism than Jordan Peterson has ever given in his entire.
But yes, over and over again, there's a line where they're like, never tell Santa like we did last year. So not only are they being like, buy toys, they're like, don't fucking tell Santa what you want. Like as if these things are in conflict, which I love. There's another meeting of Wendy and Tom, and they go to the playground where the ice rink used to be, but they paved over it. I think Grace, the kid, goes down the one slide that's left in the daycare as well. So there's like a couple moments where they're just like lonely playing with one thing. It's very funny. Also, the new Santas, they've got a bunch of shirtless guys, but the female sexy Santas are not actually
it's all men
that
are
sexy.
The sexy ones.
It's all the men that are the really sexy. So I feel like there's like all this latent homophobia.
Well, it's a very patriarchal movie, which I want to talk about in a bit.
And all these children are like unattended. And they already established that one of the kids
that's
kid is just somebody who shops a lot.
That's one of my favorite things about this movie.
Is such that
awesome.
like literally if you're just a customer, you can also use the employee. That like place honestly rocks.
Exactly. Like I'm saying, that is the most fantastical point. This well-established department store would have all of these very
I like that it almost establishes that the person never leaves, that there's an eternalness to this consumer.
Does your mommy work here? No, she just shops a lot.
Yeah.
She says I just
she stays for like 16 hours at a time from the beginning when it opens to the time that it closes. She is the eternal, and he is the abandoned child of the eternal shopper.
Yeah, but that's like not...
We never get to know these kids.
That's awesome and in the spirit of Christmas, unlike marketing, which is not in the spirit of Christmas.
What I think is funny is that all of this pro-consumerist marketing, whatever that Tiana's doing, seemingly works. They are just selling shit like gangbusters. But again, like hand over fist. I did notice
Tom Walworth has been advocating for is also marketing. Okay, we get back to the first meeting and where it's like, oh, do you like our store? Oh, yeah. No, the window display. And where'd you get that snow? That snow is just so magical. I don't know. We got it off a truck. Like, he doesn't give a fuck about any of this.
Yeah, because he needs to meet Wendy, and Wendy's going to show him and reintroduce him to his Christmas spirit.
His problem with Ashanti is literally he just thinks Ashanti's a fucking moron, and kind of rightfully so.
It kind of comes off weird and kind of racist. Like, just the way the amount of times they say she doesn't belong here. It's a little weird. There is a moment, though, that I thought was interesting where the character of Angie, when it is really busy, pointedly says Merry Christmas behind the counter. And I felt like that was supposed to be meaningful in this 2013 movie. So then we get to the plot point where Tom surprises them them with a real Christmas tree. They get to have the real Christmas tree. And even Angie, who said, oh, she didn't want it or whatever, is delighted to have the real Christmas tree in her house. And then there's a conversation that Wendy has, again, with Nick, the Santa Claus, where it's the first time it's pretty much established that he is indeed the real Santa Claus. Which I like because it's not necessarily that important to the overall plot of this movie that Santa Claus be real, but he is. And he's chosen this particular store in the city to work this year. Oh, that's how we know there's a couple other cities that the city isn't, because Santa mentions he's worked the past 2 years. He was in Vancouver and before that in Moscow.
Yeah, no, literally.
It's a different mall to work in.
This is the
real
first
Santa.
we're introduced to the mall Santa, where he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm just the mall Santa literally all over the world.
Yeah. We introduced him earlier, but this is the first indication that he's the real Santa Claus or somewhat magical.
Yeah, you're right. No, sorry. That's the second time we were introduced to him. Where she's talking to him and it's like, oh yeah, last year I was a mall Santa in Moscow. And it's like, I don't think that's how that works.
What? I don't think they do that. They got
have,
Baba Yaga
like,
over there or something.
Father Christmas, but it has this like name in Russian that's like the Dark One.
Yeah. So that happens right around when they go see Angie's play. And it's just a little caveat is that Angie's in a musical of the Christmas Carol, but then they mention that there's a Snow Queen character. I loved that. And then, Angie gets some bad news. They're going to cancel the play because it had low attendance. And they said nobody wants to see a Christmas play at Christmas, which was a particularly funny line to me because I was like, when else would you ever want to see a fucking Christmas
a whole
play?
thing on this movie, and my issue with the general conflict, where I don't think Tom actually cares about Christmas. I think it's more this weird assumption that they're not against consumerism. They just simply think that there's this assumption by stores that
there's good consumer
marketing Christmas at Christmas time is somehow not profitable. That's the thing they continuously assume.
That's what they're implying. Like the wholesomeness of it is this
they don't
big
seem to
negativity.
just, accept the fact that, I mean, to use like a Mark Fisher thing about Kurt Cobain is it's almost cliche to point out that Christmas is in fact consumerist. It's extremely cliche to point that out, but this movie seems to require me to point out that Christmas itself, their whole thing of what they consider wholesome against quote-unquote consumerism is also consumerism. Their whole deal is, in our department store, we should have candy cane displays on December 14th.
I just want to put it out there that all of the things that any reasonable modern living person would associate with classic Christmas traditions are 150 years old at best. The combination of these little aspects of different pagan things and whatever. I love the real American mythology of it. Christmas almost being its own entity unto itself. Santa talks about having Christmas face, and he says the phrase Christmas face. And I just felt like that was such an emblematic phrase of something that pops up in Christmas content where you might mention Jesus or whatever, but it's detached from the actual religious story, and it's about these more amorphous concepts of giving and faith and these very sentimental things. And
well, I want to interject and say that a lot of this is just similar to It's a Wonderful Life, or the retelling of It's a Wonderful Life, in that even in It's a Wonderful Life, there was this kind of push and pull between good small business capitalism and the large corporations that were swallowing up small businesses. And this movie, interestingly, inverts that. or at least moralizes where the big business.
Yes, where the big business
is the good guy and saves the small business by allowing for the small business to become a department in the store.
That's hilarious.
That's also a funny part is that her dead father's candy store, that's a foregone conclusion. Even Santa can't fucking save it. As the movie goes on, Ashanti has now reached another echelon of replacing the classic Christmas stuff. She's now fired Santa Claus from the store. And she also does a little bit of sneakiness. And this is where she's like a more explicit villain. And she tries to set Wendy up for theft. She plants the whole deposit bag, which I'm like, Tiana, if you were smart, you would take some of that cash out and put it in her bag. She takes the whole deposit bag, puts it in her bag, etc., and tries to contrive this thing. It doesn't really work.
It's only a thing that would work in like
a parent.
It's a Wonderful Life, or like in the 1940s when there wasn't video cameras on every single inch of a department store.
Yeah, so she's literally not touched the deposit bag. It's untouched in her bag, whatever. But here's where the next rom-com trope comes in, where we have the betrayal. The man betrays our heroine, and the way Tom betrays Wendy is she finds out he signed off on the firing of Santa Claus.
Okay, can I real quick discuss my favorite scene, because we're past it now. I stopped watching it before they actually were romantically involved. So it's the first time that Tom drops her off in the car.
Yeah.
They pull up to the apartment, and it's like, oh, this is where you live. And she's like, oh, yeah, this is where I live with, like, my friend or whatever. And actually, she doesn't have a Christmas tree because of the environment, which I alluded to earlier I'm obsessed with, because that's not a real thing. That's just the thing you tell a fucking child. But, like, we're in this movie's universe taking that aspect seriously, that like there is a contingent of people who refuse to have Christmas trees because cutting down a Christmas tree is cruel to the Christmas tree. And she like just goes off on this like fucking manic spiel about her friend and Christmas trees and real Christmas trees versus fake Christmas trees. Very Hungarian.
Yes, and she's like, don't you just think that real Christmas is a real Christmas tree?
And she goes off on this. And the type of movie it is, you think the thing that's coming next, this is the part where the lady is enamored by this dude, and she's like manically nervous, trying to fill in awkward silence by like talking about nonsensical bullshit at a fucking cokehead's pace. And the guy is going to interrupt this by kissing her in the mid-sentence. Like, you think that's the part of this movie because that's a scene that happens in these kinds of movies. But instead, Tom listens to her and then just goes, yeah, I agree. Just like listens to this whole long spiel and then just is like, oh yeah, fake Christmas trees, real Christmas trees. I know what you're talking. And seems very disinterested in the whole thing, but just it ends with him just like ostensibly agreeing with her like very strong political opinion about real versus fake Christmas.
Well, our male protagonist in these films is a empty, vacuous being who needs to be filled up with cinnamon goodness by, warm cinnamon cum by these nice small town ladies. That is a fixture of this overall situation. But the problem also is, Marlo, is that actors in this film are terribly uneven. Some of them are decent actors and others of them are not. So you've got some really wonky.
So the main actress I feel like is a very high school theater club read. A lot of the time she's very much just like read your lines and do the enunciations that make it sound like your character is into this shit.
She has some wild eyes.
Yeah, oh God, her fucking eyes.
Yeah, and she does that glassy-eyed thing. And again, going back to her being like uber chaste. She refuses to kiss this man in all like plausible scenarios. When she's in that scene in the car that you were mentioning, Marlo, they kind of almost seem like they're going to, and then she's like, oh, she's right upstairs. And I'm like, okay, bitch, stop acting like
I was expecting him to kiss her. I was seriously, I was expecting
she kind of stops it.
Like,
it's this.
Like I thought the dynamic of that scene was literally like, oh, this guy is cute. I'm nervous. I don't know what to do. Christmas trees. I'll talk about Christmas trees. But the movie plays her position on Christmas trees not as a nervous chick, but as a quintessentially important thing she is saying.
Fundamental aspect.
Like 100%, this is the most important thing she has ever talked about in her life.
Pine. It does smell good. So Marlo, now we're going to get to fill you in on what you missed. So after this sort of betrayal of Tom signing off on the real Santa, which the reason she finds out that Santa has been fired is because she goes to the daycare and finds out the neglected kid with the shopping mom has never visited Santa the entire time he's been there. So she kidnaps this strange child she doesn't know and have any authority to take anywhere, and takes him to the toy section to meet Santa, right? And then upon arriving there, she finds out, oh my God, he's been fired. But I love that they never follow this up.
Right, but that's
Santa, where she works, but the daycare isn't another
know the
part
Santa
of the
has
story.
been fired because
She didn't yet that day. Just let us tell you the rest of the fucking movie. So, yeah, this is a particularly funny part to me that she just just takes this kid, doesn't ask anybody.
Yeah, no, God
doesn't
forbid
look for
the
anybody
kid
to
might
ask.
not,
There's no sign out sheet, just whatever. Yeah, so then all of these things happen and she has another conversation with Santa, right? She's like bummed out. She's like on a park bench. Santa shows up again. And this is where we affirm that this is the real Santa. He tells her, now this is the only place where he really serves the plot, I guess, where he essentially tells her that what her dead father's last Christmas wish was. And it was for her to follow her dreams. It's fine you didn't save the store. You know,
and that means
you gotta
sucking
follow
that guy's rich guy's dick. That's the dream.
So then they go back. She gets empowered by this conversation, and then there's a coming together where our main characters are like, who wants to take back Christmas? And what I noticed about this third act stuff is all of our main characters fucking love a store so much. It's very funny. They turn Tiana's bodyguard.
Another betrayal.
Oh, that's
with
awesome
the
shit.
power
I
of
need to
Christmas.
watch the rest of this.
He comes over to their side.
He's the most
then,
wonderful himbo in film.
He's a great himbo. Meanwhile, all of these events have happened within 3 weeks. Got to emphasize this again. So they attack this sexy Santa display and put up the more traditional Christmas display overnight. Also, Ashanti has not only schemed to make it seem like Wendy was stealing, but she was somehow getting the board to get her to replace Tom's uncle. There was a fax that came in that said this. I love it because I don't believe this is how any of these business entities work. I don't think. Anyway, Tiana is not taking it lying down. She gets there. She realizes they've turned back all of her Christmas displays. Bruno has turned on her. Then she tries to fight back, and she turns on the sexy Santa techno video.
Then Angie.
And it's like,
the revolution.
And then Angie fights back with our last cringe song.
Was it Hark the Herald Angels Sing?
Again, it's an overly Jesus-y
Or Oh Come All Ye
Damn it.
Faithful.
Oh, come all ye faithful. That's what it is. Funny part is, again, it's overly Jesus-y for a relatively secular Christmas film. But no way that many random people in the crowd
I was singing
all
along.
the words to that Christmas carol. But they do. And they sing it so loud.
So it's
they sing it louder
basically
than
that scene
TVs,
from
playing the sexy
Casablanca
Santa
where
techno.
everyone sings.
And yes, it's exactly like that. So they win by overpowering this. Ashanti gets very mad and she throws a Christmas wreath and they all gasp dramatically at her gauche display. And then I believe Tom's uncle comes in and is like, get out of here. I'm taking back over the store. How did you couldn't tell this the whole time? There's a bunch of fucking B plot with the investors and all this.
I'm just headcanon filling this in
bullshit,
with
which I love when
cop where the guy goes, "You're fired."
Mm-hmm. Yes. But then Wendy takes Gracie after this glorious triumph back to their small town. Quinton somewhere is the name of the town. Kind of just takes off, just goes back to her mom and the small town and the ice skating rink, takes the kid out for the traditional going ice skating on Christmas. And Mom, you better have that cider ready for us when we walk in the door. And I was like, that's such a weird thing to say. When we walk in the door, yeah, you better have it when we walk in the door because that's the fun part. I know, just the tyranny of people trying to maintain Christmas cheer.
I think we should call the episode that. The tyranny of people trying to maintain Christmas cheer. I love that.
Call it, there ain't no love in the heart of the city. And also, my suggestion for our playout music is Flute of the Commodores, Living in the City.
So, yeah, have the cider ready or whatever. So then they go out to the ice skating rink, and oh my gosh, she runs into Tom. She didn't tell Tom she was leaving. She just left the city, went back to her small town, and he's had to track her down here. And he runs into her in front of the old candy shop, and then tells her that he's going to give her a department in Woolman's. They're starting a candy department and they'd like her to run it, which brings us to our final beautiful trope of the lifetime Christmas rom-com is that
it's even more insidious than that because that's like
this ending is definitely more insidious than that because again the kid says a couple creepy things like
the whole
point
was
just
you
what
had
I want.
this
like she's so invested in her mom getting boned.
Cornerstone of the community, which was this brick and mortar store that existed in a certain place at a certain time. It doesn't make sense if now all the fucking bumpkins from your hometown are like, oh yeah, that store doesn't exist anymore, but you can like go to the city and like see it in Macy's. Like it's seriously like this fucking simulacra fucking thing, right?
Yeah, and I definitely think the ending has its own more sophisticated bit of cringe. So we have the beautiful ending. It's implied that now there's the happy ending. Tom and Wendy are ending up together. Gracie is still like, I'm trying to go skating. And earlier in the film, Wendy had established that on Christmas, the tradition was to go to the ice skating rink, but she's really bad at skating. So her dad always had to help her skate around. But her daughter Gracie's actually like really great and is like doing a ton of tricks and whatever. The end scene is essentially just this tableau of Tom now replacing her father as the person who holds her hand when she skates on Christmas. And it's so creepy.
There's a number. This is my major note. There's a number of patriarchal exchanges in this movie. First, the dead father owning the candy store, passing it down to Wendy, who then loses the candy store. There's the uncle who owns the Woolmans, who's passing it down to Tom. And then there's Father Christmas, Santa, who is passing down her father's wish to Wendy, who is then passing the spirit of Christmas to Grace, implying another generation of the spirit of Christmas being realized or continuing to go forward. And then this comedy is that, yes, Tom replaces the father, takes the candy store, installs it as a department in his store, and Santa is also there to kind of facilitate this mystical, spiritual, this spirit of Christmas, which eventually just becomes a way of capitalism being able to produce itself by generational wealth and maintaining this kind of dictatorship of the bourgeoisie that kind of moves the entire plot forward. The entire plot is about these absent patriarchs and then exchanging that for this future generation to maintain the capitalism, good, bad, or otherwise. I just find there's so much mention about the father.
Mm-hmm. That's why she wants to hold on to the store.
She wants to find a replacement in Tom as this kind of love interest / person to inherit the store, who eventually inherits the store.
Yeah, I was especially creeped out at it was almost like a beat for beat recreation of the story she had told earlier in the movie about her father. Tom takes her hand and she's all clumsy on the ice, and I'm like, this is weird. I'm sorry, bitch. You have learned to ice skate at this point. You don't have two left feet and ice skating forever. That's
decided
not
you don't give a shit about ice skating, which is also a fine thing for an adult to decide.
That's a valid, but this is a character whose daughter's obsessed with ice skating, is good enough at ice skating that she does tricks, and at least we know Wendy goes at least once a year to ice skate herself. Yeah, despite having her two left feet. That's another rom-com trope. That's her fulfilling the clumsy, pretty woman.
What do you think about the Father Christmas?
She's not really clumsy anymore.
The spirit of Santa, the implied actual Santa, replacing the patriarch of the father and endowing Wendy with the gift of the father's blessing.
Yeah. Well, what struck me on the rewatch was that initially, the first time I had watched this movie,
it's not unnecessary. It is integral
to have Santa Claus be real. But now I see how integral it was, because without Santa being real, we don't have any confirmation of what the dead father would have
Santa
wanted.
Becomes the replacement.
It's the only way
father.
Wendy can move on. But he also can confirm what her father's last Christmas wish was, which absolves her of this guilt she carries around that she's got to keep the store afloat. We never get any details about the promise she actually literally made her father in living life. They reference it, but we don't understand.
I'm assuming it's that, yes, Dad, I will live my life
of that promise were,
which is the reflection of the wish of the father.
If I eventually have to require a magical fairy to tell them that I want them to live their lives, that's a failure on your part as a parent. What the fuck else do you want for your children? Fuck off. Your dad actually wanted you to be happy. No fucking way. Really? Shit. Thought he wanted me to be miserable.
Well, I mean, that is kind of what she seems to think until Santa can confirm for her. And I guess give her, like you're saying, that
also I will say
patriarchal
you guys refer to It's a Wonderful Life a few times, but honestly, this kind of seems to me the more obvious comparison is Miracle on 34th Street, which is a movie that is premised on the fact that actually department stores are literally magical and metaphysically represent the Christmas spirit.
I was only referencing It's a Wonderful Life because
that's the foil. Yeah,
that's where we get these traditions.
But I would say that actually now I've developed a whole fucking dialectical theory of classic Christmas movies, which is that Miracle on 34th Street and It's a Wonderful Life operate on this oppositional dialectic between the two, where Miracle on 34th Street is essentially saying that no, in fact, big business is what the Christmas spirit is. That's where the magic of Christmas comes from, is gigantic faceless corporations, and you should embrace that. and love them.
Yeah, and that they kind of, without them, then there is
no
kind
Christmas
of
tradition.
Not only is there no
the window
Christmas,
display.
but Christmas is decayed. I think Christmas still exists as a thought, but it's decayed, it's fluid, it's this artifice.
Well, no, they could lose Christmas. They could lose it. Like, there's this pretense that real Christmas is a thing that exists, and it's gingerbread and
only
candy
5
canes
songs
and
that are sung.
fake snow and
like,
real trees.
Again.
Yeah. But they could lose it to sexy Santas if they don't watch out. That is the warning.
Where does Love
movie.
Actually come into this dialectic?
Well, here's the thing. Love Actually is a more prestige Christmas rom-com situation.
Which is
it's also
extremely
one of those multiple
postmodern
storyline holiday
construction
movie things.
I will say I've only ever seen Love Actually.
Of those in that particular
we can't
get into Love Actually.
No,
we're so long.
Nobody does. I don't know either.
Yeah.
I've seen that movie 3 times, and all 3 times I was either coming up on or coming down from an acid trip in college.
Oh, I'm gonna do a bunch of
that movie
and watch it.
Not tripping.
I say we do a post-Christmas show and we hit Love Actually, and also my holiday favorite song.
Okay, my theory.
You don't have to watch it. We can. You know what it fucking is. You make sure it's right.
But you no idea what happens.
Sorry, you will have to listen to
I have a theory.
Shoes. That is.
I think Love Actually is underwritten by American Airlines or United Airlines to get people back onto planes after 9/11. There's not only a lot of flying, but they mention 9/11 a bunch of times, and then the end of the movie is just completely takes place in an airport terminal.
Mm-hmm. It sure does.
That's it. That's the only message that I can get from the movie. There's nothing about love. There's nothing about British politics. It's just go on the planes.
I know. Emma Thompson in that movie is wearing a fat suit, strangely, to make her more frumpy. It's one of those movies.
Right, we're getting off. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for bringing that up.
In passing. Yeah, we get. But it's one of those movies you watch in passing and then watch again and being like, oh God.
Like it's Love Actually. I actually consider Casablanca a Christmas.
Oh my God. I think that's actually fair.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
That's fair.
It is. No, I do unironically consider it one of the most quintessential anti-fascist leftist films of our time, of any time. Really.
That's fair. I say, yeah, okay. We're going to do more movies next week. There's a part where Ashanti says the word mausoleum, but she says it mausoleum.
Anyway.
Look, guys. We're very long. Have a cool Yule.
Mommy, what is that?
Oh, it's a man with his shirt off. I gotta go to work. Let's go.
Boys, you can't trust Santa to make you cool. You gotta buy what you need to be cool at school. Buy the latest toys. It's the best way to feel a Christmas joy. Oh, never trust Santa like we did last year to bring in the toys that give you Christmas cheer. You gotta buy the latest toys. And then you can be one of the cool girls and boys. Oh yeah, you can be cool.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem.